Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. This is MY Table. The shout cracked through the Gala ballroom, sharp enough to turn heads mid-laugh. Chandeliers poured icy light over white linen, candle flames, and a neat circle of champagne flutes. At table 12, a black man sat composed in a tailored black suit, still as stone, eyes calm, hands resting near the edge of the table as if he had nowhere else to be. The woman in the red dress marched straight at him. Blonde hair, diamond necklace, a finger already raised like a verdict. Behind her, her husband in a tux, smiling the way people smile when they expect the room to agree with them. And beside them, closing in with an earpiece and a practice stance, was security. "Sir," the head of security said, voice polite but final, "I need to verify your credentials. Your badge or invitation, please." The man didn't argue. He glanced down at the place card in front of him, clean print, crisp edges, then lifted his eyes to the woman. Charlotte. You could tell by the way she said that she wasn't talking about a chair. She was talking about ownership. "You're in the wrong seat," she snapped. "This is a private gala. You don't just sit wherever you want." A soft laugh rippled from somewhere nearby. A phone rose. Then another. Screens lit up like small predators. Her husband, Grant, leaned in with performative patience. "Let's not make this a scene," he said, while making sure everyone watched. "Just move him." Security hesitated, then shifted closer. Not aggressive. Just close enough to remind the man that dignity could be negotiated in public if the wrong people demanded it. A young waiter stood frozen a few steps away, tray in hand, eyes wide. He'd seen the host seat the man. He'd seen the seating chart. He knew what was true, but truth wasn't the loudest voice in the room. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus Cole. Marcus rose slowly, not in surrender, just in control. He stepped half a pace back so no one could claim he resisted. He pointed once, calmly, to the place card. "Check the seating chart," he said, voice low and even. Charlotte scoffed and snatched the card, scanning it like she expected the ink to apologize. "This can't be right," she snapped, tossing it back onto the linen. Marcus didn't reach for it. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and typed a message with the same calm he'd used to breathe. "Send." Grant watched him with a smirk. "Calling someone?" he asked. "Good. They can explain to you how these events work." Marcus slid the phone away and looked at the head of security, steady, unreadable. In the officer's earpiece, a faint crackle began. On the stage across the room, the MC's smile faltered for the first time. And the ballroom, so loud a second ago, started to quiet, as if it suddenly sensed it had put its hands on the wrong man. The quiet didn't arrive gently. It fell. A slow, unnatural hush that made the ballroom feel smaller, like the chandeliers had lowered a few inches and the air had thickened between breaths. Marcus Cole stood beside his chair, hands loose at his sides, gaze steady. Not defiant. Not pleading. Just present. The kind of calm that didn't ask permission to exist. Charlotte Whitmore held the place card like it offended her. Her nails, perfect, pale, pinched the paper as if she could squeeze the truth out of it. "Table 12, she muttered, eyes darting over the print again. "That's our table." Grant's smile tightened. The smugness stayed, but it shifted, less playful now, more protective. Men like him didn't fear being wrong. They feared being wrong in front of witnesses. The head of security, Daniels, kept his posture neutral, but his attention was split in two places, Marcus in front of him, and the faint, restless crackle in his earpiece. "Copy that," a voice murmured through the static. "Stand by. Do not escalate." Daniels blinked once, as if that instruction didn't match the situation he'd been handed. Charlotte didn't hear the earpiece. She heard the room. She heard phones. She heard the soft, hungry excitement of people watching a humiliation unfold like a live show. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, loud enough for the nearest tables to lean in. "Who even let him sit here?" A few heads turned toward the entrance, where the event coordinator stood frozen with a tablet pressed to her chest. She looked like someone who had just realized her clipboard might be a weapon pointed at her own career. The coordinator's eyes flicked to Marcus. Then to the seating chart. Then back to Marcus, this time with a flicker of recognition that didn't feel like familiarity. It felt like fear. Because table 12 wasn't just a table. Table 12 was the table. The donor table. The power table. The table close enough to the stage that everyone could see who belonged there and who didn't. At a gala like this, chairs were currency. Seating was hierarchy. A name printed on linen was a public declaration of worth. And Charlotte Whitmore had built her whole social world on that math. Grant stepped closer to her, lowering his voice like he was speaking to a child who needed calming. "Babe," he said, still smiling, "it's a mix-up. That's all. They'll fix it." But his eyes were on Marcus now, studying him. The suit. The watch. The way Marcus didn't scan the room like a trespasser, didn't look for an escape, didn't look for approval. He looked like someone waiting for other people to catch up. At the edge of the table, Eli the waiter stood with his tray, knuckles white around the handle. He had been trained to be invisible. Tonight, he was a witness. He remembered the host greeting Marcus at the entrance, an awkward, overly enthusiastic handshake, like the host knew the name but not the face. He remembered the way the coordinator had said, "Right this way, sir," and how Marcus had nodded once, polite, quiet, almost tired. Eli had seen important people before. They didn't always sparkle. Sometimes they moved like shadows, because the light was already theirs. Charlotte waved her hand at Daniels as if he were a servant. "Remove him. Now. He's ruining the entire night." Daniels didn't move. That was the first crack. Charlotte's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" Daniels kept his tone professional, but something in it cooled. "Ma'am, I'm verifying. Please step back." Grant's smile dropped for half a second. "Daniels," he said, the name landing heavy. "We're telling you this man doesn't belong here." Daniels looked at Marcus again, then at the coordinator. "Confirm the seating assignment," he said. The coordinator's fingers flew over her tablet. She swallowed, hard. Her face drained as she read whatever sat on that screen. "Daniels," she whispered, barely audible. It's him." Charlotte laughed sharply. "It's who?" The coordinator didn't answer Charlotte. She stared at Marcus like she wanted to apologize without being seen apologizing. Across the room, near the stage, the MC adjusted his cue cards. A producer leaned in, whispering fast, urgent. The MC's eyes widened, then flicked toward table 12 as if pulled by a magnet. On a small monitor behind the curtains, the sponsor's slide deck paused, then refreshed. A new name appeared in bold. The MC's mouth opened, then closed again. He tried a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because in that moment, everyone in the control booth understood the same thing at once. This wasn't a seat dispute anymore. This was a mistake made in public against a man who could end careers with a sentence. And Marcus, still calm, still silent, simply waited as the room began to realize who had the power to decide what happened next. Charlotte didn't back down. She leaned closer to Marcus as if proximity could intimidate him, as if the room would reward the person willing to be the most certain regardless of facts. "This is insane," she said, voice pitched for an audience. "He's pretending. He's obviously not supposed to be here." Grant shifted beside her, shoulders squared, gaze scanning the tables like he was counting allies. A few donors nodded without committing. A few smiled the way people smile when they want to look harmless on camera. The phone stayed up. The waiter, Eli, took a half step back, tray trembling. He watched Charlotte's hand flick down toward the linen like she was clearing clutter off a counter. The place card skidded across the table and bumped a champagne flute. The glass didn't fall. It just rang thin, sharp, a single note that cut through the whispers. Daniels, the head of security, tightened his jaw. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "please don't touch the table setting." Charlotte snapped her head toward him. "Don't tell me what to do. I fund this event." Grant added, softer but sharper, "Daniels, we're not asking. This man is disrupting the gala." Daniels didn't move. His eyes flicked toward the coordinator again. The coordinator looked like she wanted to disappear into her tablet. Her lips parted, but no sound came out, like she'd been caught between two forces and didn't want to anger either. Charlotte noticed. She turned on the coordinator like a spotlight. "You," she said, pointing. "Explain. Now. Who put him here?" The coordinator swallowed. "Mrs. Whitmore, the seating is." "The seating is wrong," Charlotte cut in, loud enough to make nearby conversations stop. "Fix it. Or I'll make sure you never work another charity event in this city." That landed. Not because it was dramatic. Because everyone knew she could do it. Grant's hand settled lightly at Charlotte's back, guiding her forward like a handler calming a prized animal. His voice stayed smooth, but his eyes were cold. "Let's do this the easy way," he told Daniels. "Escort him out. We'll deal with the paperwork later." Daniels' earpiece crackled again. "Daniels," the voice said, urgent now. "Hold position. Do not remove him. Repeat, do not remove him." Daniels' gaze flicked upward, as if the ceiling itself had spoken. Charlotte misread the hesitation as weakness. She smiled, quick and cruel. "There it is," she said. "He knows you're not supposed to be here." Marcus didn't react to the smile. He didn't even look at it. He looked past it, past her, past Grant, past the donors with their expensive discomfort, and for the first time, his eyes landed on the stage. The MC stood frozen with cue cards in hand. A producer at his shoulder whispered rapidly, one hand clamped over a headset mic, the other gesturing toward table 12 like it was a fire that needed containing. Stage lights dimmed a fraction. Not enough for most people to notice. Enough for Marcus. Charlotte stepped in front of his line of sight, reclaiming the center. "What's your name?" she demanded. "Because I'm about to make sure it's on a list." A few people laughed nervously at that, like it was a joke and not a threat. Marcus finally spoke, voice low, controlled. "You don't need my name," he said. "You need the truth." Grant exhaled, irritated now. "Truth? The truth is you're sitting in the wrong seat." Daniels lifted a hand, not toward Marcus, but toward Charlotte, a subtle barrier. "Ma'am, step back. I'm confirming with the event lead. Charlotte's face hardened. No. You're obeying me. She turned to the room, raising her voice, turning humiliation into a performance. Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe this? Some people really think they can walk into spaces that aren't meant for them. The words hung there, sharp-edged and coded. A few people shifted uncomfortably. A few pretended not to understand. A few filmed harder. Eli's throat tightened. The coordinator's fingers shook over the tablet. And Marcus, still calm, reached into his jacket and took out his phone again. Not to argue. Not to plead. Just to check the time, as if this was an appointment and the room was late. Then his screen lit with a new message. 2 words. No emojis. No softness. On stage. Now. Marcus slid the phone away. He looked at Daniels, then at Charlotte, then toward the stage where the MC's face had gone pale. And in that split second, the ballroom didn't feel like a party anymore. It felt like a courtroom right before the verdict is read. The first step Marcus took toward the aisle didn't look dramatic. But it changed the room. Daniel shifted immediately, not blocking him, positioning, recalibrating. The security team's instincts were built on hierarchy, and something unseen had just rearranged the ladder. Charlotte saw Marcus move and snapped like a tripwire. "Oh, no you don't," she said, stepping into his path. "You're not walking anywhere until you explain why you're here." Grant's hand landed on her forearm, half restraint, half control. His eyes followed Marcus with a new calculation, the kind that appears when confidence starts to leak. Marcus didn't stop. He angled his body slightly, giving Charlotte no contact point, no excuse to claim she'd been pushed. He moved around her the way water moves around a rock, without asking permission. Charlotte's face reddened. "Daniels," she barked. "Do your job." Daniels' jaw flexed. He pressed a finger to his earpiece. The crackle came again, louder now, urgent enough that even the nearest guests could sense it. "Daniels, confirm visual," the voice said. "Is he moving?" Daniels' eyes tracked Marcus. "Affirmative." A pause. Then, clearer, "Stand down." "He is cleared." Repeat, "Stand down." Daniels didn't announce it. He just did what trained professionals do when the chain of command changes. He stepped back. Not away from Marcus, away from Charlotte. That detail didn't go unnoticed. A ripple passed through the crowd, the kind of ripple that starts as gossip and becomes instinct. Charlotte stared at Daniels like she'd been slapped. "Excuse me," she said, voice sharp enough to cut linen. "I'm telling you." Daniels lifted a hand, palm open. "Not aggressive. Final. Ma'am, please allow the guest to proceed." "Guest?" Charlotte repeated, laughing once, brittle. "He's not." Her sentence died as the event coordinator hurried forward, tablet pressed to her chest like a shield. "Mrs. Whitmore," the coordinator whispered, trembling, "please, please, let him pass." Charlotte's head snapped toward her. "Are you out of your mind?" The coordinator's eyes flicked to Grant, then back to Charlotte. "I'm trying to protect you," she breathed, barely moving her lips. Grant heard it. His smile vanished completely now. Across the room, the stage became a hive. Behind the curtain, the producer was waving 2 hands, fast and panicked. A stage manager sprinted with a headset cord bouncing against his collar. Someone shoved a printed sheet into the MC's hands, fresh paper, crisp ink, the kind that meant the show had been rewritten in real time. On the side monitor, the sponsored deck refreshed again. The title slide disappeared. A new slide loaded with a clean corporate logo and a name in bold type. The MC stared at it like it was a trap. He swallowed, nodded once to himself, then looked out at the ballroom with a smile that was now pure survival. Marcus walked down the aisle between tables that had suddenly remembered manners. People who'd been filming lowered their phones an inch, not because they'd found empathy, but because their instincts told them the wind had changed direction. He passed Eli, the young waiter, who stood stiff as a statue. Eli's eyes met Marcus's for half a second. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't reassure him with a performance. He gave him a single nod, small, grounded, a quiet message that said, "I saw everything. And I'm still standing." Charlotte turned, heels clicking hard on marble as she followed, refusing to be left behind. Grant stayed close, his voice low in her ear. "Stop," he murmured. "Something's off." Charlotte yanked her arm away. "What's off is they're letting him." She stopped mid-sentence because Daniels moved again, drifting into her path. Not blocking her outright. Just guiding her pace, controlling the distance, creating a boundary she hadn't asked for and couldn't break without looking exactly like what she was. Her eyes widened. "Daniels, move." Daniels' tone stayed respectful. "Ma'am, please remain here." Grant's face tightened. "Are you serious?" Daniels didn't argue. He didn't need to. The chain of command had already spoken. At the foot of the stage, Marcus paused. The curtain edge brushed his shoulder as a stagehand pulled it back. The producer leaned in, voice fast and hushed. "Mr. Cole, thank you. We're ready. Your legal team is on the way up. The MC has the updated script." Marcus didn't look at the producer. He looked at the ballroom, at the wealth, the laughter that had turned to silence, the phones hovering like insects. Then he stepped into the glow of the stage lights. Out front, the MC lifted the microphone with a hand that barely steadied. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, smile stretched thin but controlled, "thank you for your generosity tonight. We have a very special moment and introduction that, I assure you, will set the tone for everything that comes next." His eyes flicked, just once, toward Marcus in the wings. "And now," the MC said, voice catching on the last word before he forced it smooth, "please join me in welcoming." "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC said, voice stretching over a tremor, "please join me in welcoming our Chief Executive Officer." A beat too long. Mr. Marcus Cole. The ballroom didn't react at first. The words landed, but the meaning took a second to catch fire. Then glasses stopped midair. Smiles collapsed into straight lines. Two phones that had been filming for entertainment tilted, suddenly trying to look professional, as if the clip had always been for documentation. Marcus stepped into the stage light like he'd always belonged there, because he had. No grin. No theatrics. Just a quiet authority that made the chandeliers feel less like decoration and more like surveillance. At table 12, Charlotte Whitmore froze. Her red dress, so powerful minutes ago, now looked like a flare she couldn't put out. Grant's face drained fast. His eyes flicked to security, then to the coordinator, then back to the stage like he was searching for a door that wouldn't be recorded. Daniels, the head of security, straightened on instinct recognition, snapping his spine into alignment. Marcus reached the microphone. He didn't tap it. He didn't clear his throat. He let silence do what shouting never could. "Thank you for being here tonight," he said, voice low, calm, American. "For your generosity. For the speeches, the photos, the promises." A pause, just enough to make the room feel the blade under the velvet. "And for the lesson you gave me at table 12. A shiver moved through the crowd. I came in quietly, Marcus continued, eyes scanning the room, because I wanted to see what happens when my title isn't doing the talking. He shifted his gaze briefly, precisely, to Charlotte and Grant. In spaces like this, a chair becomes a border. A place card becomes a gate. And some people decide loudly who belongs. He didn't name them yet. He didn't need to. The phones were already doing it for him. Marcus turned his head slightly. Daniels. Yes, sir. Secure the area around table 12, Marcus said, steady as a signature. Keep the aisles clear. Preserve all footage. No one gets touched, and no one deletes anything. Daniels nodded once and moved, professional, quiet, exact. 2 guards shifted into place, not like a lockdown, but like a perimeter. The coordinator's hands shook around her tablet. Marcus leaned into the mic again. Tonight isn't about humiliation, he said. It's about accountability. Then he delivered the words that snapped the room into a different kind of silence, courtroom silence. Charlotte Whitmore. Grant Whitmore, Marcus said clearly. Please stand. Charlotte didn't move. Grant rose first, chin lifted like posture could negotiate reality. Marcus watched them without anger, only with certainty. Thank you, he said. Now, don't sit back down. Charlotte's knees locked, pride fighting panic in her throat. Grant stood rigid, eyes darting across the room, measuring how many allies he still had. The answer was written in the way people looked away. At the edge of the stage, 2 figures appeared with the kind of quiet urgency that didn't belong at a gala, HR in a navy suit, badge clipped at the waist, legal with a slim portfolio and a face that didn't waste expressions. They didn't rush. They didn't posture. They moved like a process. Marcus turned slightly toward them, then back to the ballroom. For everyone here, he said, tone controlled, this company runs on policy, not preference. That applies to donors, executives, and me. HR stepped forward, voice level. Ms. Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore. Please come with us for a formal intake. Charlotte snapped, too loud. You can't do this in front of everyone. In front of witnesses? Marcus finished, calm. You did. Grant tried smooth corporate damage control. Marcus, he said, forcing familiarity, let's handle this privately. This is a misunderstanding. Marcus didn't blink. A misunderstanding is a calendar conflict, he said. What happened at table 12 was a decision. Legal opened the portfolio. Effective immediately, she said, crisp and neutral, both of you are placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Your building access and system privileges are suspended during the review. Grant's jaw tightened. You can't suspend. I can, Marcus said. Not louder. Final. He looked toward Daniels. Escort them to the conference suite. No spectacle. No commentary. Just separation and documentation. Daniels nodded, signaling his team with a subtle gesture. The formation shifted, not around Marcus, but around the Whitmores. Charlotte's eyes flashed as she searched the room for rescue, friendly faces, loyal donors, anyone willing to make this go away. Most people stared at their napkins. Some kept filming, because now the story wasn't entertainment. Now it was evidence. As Charlotte and Grant were guided into the aisle, Charlotte hissed, "You're doing this over a seat." Marcus's gaze held her. "No," he said. "I'm doing this because you thought you could decide who deserves dignity." They passed table 12. Eli stood near the service corridor, tray lowered, hands trembling. Marcus spoke without looking away from the Whitmores. "Someone get a statement from the waiter who witnessed this," he said. "And make sure he gets home safely tonight." Eli's eyes widened, seen, finally, by the only person in the room who didn't need to perform. The Whitmores disappeared behind the curtain line into corridors where chandeliers didn't shine and titles didn't sparkle. But the phones in the ballroom stayed up. And somewhere between candlelight and champagne, someone hit upload, turning the last 10 minutes into a wildfire that would not wait for permission. The wildfire started inside the ballroom. A clip hit the internet with a clean, cruel caption: "They stole his seat, then realized he runs the company." It spread in pieces: Charlotte's finger, Grant's smug half-smile, Daniel's hesitating, the MC's shaky breath, then Marcus under stage lights, calm enough to make the entire room look guilty. Phones vibrated non-stop. People refreshed like it was oxygen. At one table, a donor whispered, "It's at $1 million already." His wife didn't answer, she was watching the comments flood in, brutal and fast. Inside the conference suite, reality moved quieter but heavier. Legal set a recorder on the table. HR opened a checklist. Security held the hallway without raising a voice. The mood wasn't vengeance. It was procedure. Charlotte sat stiff, furious, eyes darting as her phone buzzed again and again. "This is defamation," she snapped. "You're letting them destroy us." Legal's response was flat. "If the footage is accurate, it isn't defamation." Grant glanced at his screen and went pale. Messages stacked like falling bricks. "Board member, call me now." "Investor contact, need clarity tonight." "PR advisor, do not post anything." "News alert, company CEO suspends executives after incident at Gala." Grant looked up at Marcus, voice lower now. "This can be fixed," he said. "We'll apologize. We'll donate more. Just contain it." Marcus didn't flinch. "You don't contain truth," he said. "You document it." In a side office, Eli sat with a bottle of water he hadn't touched, giving his statement. He described the host seating Marcus. He described Charlotte's threats. He described the way the room leaned in to watch. No one rushed him. When he finished, Marcus stepped in, no cameras, no performance. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "You told the truth." Eli swallowed hard and nodded, like gratitude was something he didn't trust yet. Back in the suite, Marcus's communications director entered with a tablet, face tight. "It's trending nationwide. Outlets want comment. Investors are calling. And there's already a rumor we're trying to cover it up." Marcus didn't hesitate. "We don't cover truth," he repeated. "Draft a statement. Clear, factual. No spin." He turned to HR, "And I want more than discipline," he said. "I want corrective action that changes outcomes, not headlines." Charlotte leaned forward, voice shaking with anger. "You're enjoying this." Marcus met her stare, expression unmoved. "No," he said. "I'm fixing what you were comfortable breaking." He stood, buttoned his jacket, and paused at the door. "Also," he added, calm as a closing bell, "tonight's donations won't be used the way they were originally planned." Charlotte's breath caught. Grant's head snapped up. "What does that mean?" Marcus didn't answer yet. He let the question hang, sharp, terrifying, because consequences don't need shouting. Then he walked back toward the ballroom, where the stage lights still burned and the next decision would be made in public. When Marcus returned to the stage, the music didn't stop, but it sounded smaller, like the band was afraid of being mistaken for celebration. The MC handed him the microphone with both hands. The room sat up straight. Not out of respect. out of instinct. Tonight's donations, Marcus said, voice steady, will be directed differently than originally scheduled. A ripple moved through the tables. Some donors blinked. Some stiffened. Because gala money is usually steered by the loudest names and the closest friends. Marcus continued. Effective immediately, I'm directing our corporate foundation to establish the Coal Equity Fund, with board ratification first thing tomorrow morning. The phrase board ratification mattered. It turned a speech into governance. This will be a restricted fund, Marcus said, dedicated to scholarships, paid apprenticeships, and leadership development for underrepresented talent in our industry. Independent oversight. Measurable outcomes. Public reporting. He didn't talk about feelings. He talked about structure. 50% of tonight's proceeds will support full-ride scholarships through verified partners, Marcus said. 30% will fund paid apprenticeship pathways inside this company, roles with mentors, benchmarks, and protections. 20% will fund third-party audits of hiring, promotion, and conduct for the next 12 months. Silence held the room like a hand on the back of the neck. At the service corridor, Eli stood watching, still not sure he was allowed to be visible. Marcus looked in his direction, then spoke without turning it into a spectacle. And the waiter who told the truth tonight, Marcus said, will be contacted privately by HR within 24 hours about scholarship eligibility and career pathways. No cameras. No pressure. Just opportunity. Eli's eyes shone, but he didn't smile. He just breathed, like his lungs had been tight for years. Marcus lifted his chin slightly, addressing the entire ballroom. Starting tomorrow, he said, our event conduct policy changes. Seating assignments will be verifiable by staff. Security will have a clear escalation path that cannot be overridden by social pressure. And there will be an independent hotline for discrimination complaints, anonymous, protected, audited. He didn't say the Whitmore's names again. The room already carried them like a stain. If you came tonight to donate because it looks good, Marcus said evenly, thank you for your honesty. But this company will not sell dignity as decoration at our offices, at our events, or in any room where someone thinks a chair is a throne. He handed the microphone back like the speech was simply a function of the job. Behind the curtain, legal met him with a folder. Press is waiting, she said. The board wants an emergency call tonight. Marcus nodded once. Good, he said. Let them listen. In the conference suite down the hall, Grant stared at his phone as a message from an investor arrived, cold, controlled, unmistakable. We're reassessing our position. Call me. Charlotte's face tightened, but there was nowhere to put the anger now. Because the room had already changed. And this time, it wasn't changing back. 3 months later, the Gala clip still lived online, but it didn't feel like gossip anymore. It felt like a reference point. In the executive suite on the 42nd floor, the boardroom lights were bright and unforgiving. The Whitmore's names were no longer on doors, no longer on email threads, no longer on guest lists that mattered. Their administrative leave had become a resignation letter, then a legal file, then the quiet exile that follows public certainty collapsing in real time. Grant tried to negotiate his way back with apologies that sounded rehearsed. Charlotte tried to frame it as a misunderstanding, a moment taken out of context. But context had been the whole point. The investigation didn't need drama, it had timestamps, statements, and video from angles they didn't know existed. Investors didn't leave because they felt moral. They left because the company had drawn a line and proved it could enforce it. And Marcus Cole made sure the line stayed. The Coal Equity Fund launched with a board-approved charter and an independent audit schedule that couldn't be softened by charm. On the company intranet, it wasn't marketed as a pledge. It was listed as infrastructure like payroll, compliance, and security. In the cafeteria one morning, Eli stood at a small table with a badge clipped to his shirt, still looking like he expected someone to tell him he didn't belong. He was starting the corporate hospitality program, paid, mentored, protected. The first day, he kept his voice low, careful. By the third week, he started asking questions in meetings. The kind of questions people in suits weren't used to hearing from the person who used to carry their trays. Daniels went through retraining, too. Not punished like a scapegoat, corrected like a professional. He learned escalation protocols that didn't rely on social pressure. He learned what stand down should mean before a crowd decides who deserves dignity. He didn't talk about the gala much. He just changed how he worked. The gala ballroom had been a stage. The aftermath became a system. One evening, long after the headlines moved on, Marcus walked through a quiet conference room where scholarship recipients were gathered for orientation. No cameras. No speeches. Just young faces and nervous hands, resumes folded too tightly, hope trying to be discreet. He didn't sit at the front. He took a chair near the back. A coordinator started to introduce him, but Marcus lifted a hand, small, calm. No need. He listened. He watched. And in that room, the power didn't look like a title. It looked like someone getting a chance without having to beg for it. Later, in his office, Marcus stood by the window with the city spread beneath him, traffic like veins, lights like quiet promises. His phone buzzed with updates, audit milestones met, apprenticeship placements confirmed, policy compliance at the next event. He didn't smile for the accomplishment. He breathed for the stability. Because stability was what dignity looked like when it wasn't being tested. Behind him, on a shelf, sat the gala place card from table 12, framed, simple, unglamorous. Not as a trophy. As a reminder that the world will always try to turn a chair into a border. And that real leadership isn't proving you deserve a seat. It's making sure the room can't steal it from anyone ever again. Marcus turned off the office lights and spoke to the empty quiet, as if sealing the lesson into the walls. Character is currency, he said. And respect is the only investment that always pays.